Welcome to Spine Time, players. It's week 2 of the mobility portion of Whole Life Challenge. I hope you had a chance to get to know your breath over the last week. Today, we're going to go over the cardinal movements of the spine. So here's your spine. Well, here's this model skeleton spine. You have 4 curves of the spine. You have the cervical curve, which curves in. You have the thoracic curve, which curves out, the lumbar in, and the sacrum out. And ideally, the spine acts as an amazing shock absorber, but it has 4 major ways that it moves. And so we're going to explore those 4 ways today in our sequence, and we're going to roll out some of our back muscles and mobilize our spinal bones with the yoga tune-up therapy balls. So our check-in is a really cool rotating movement, and it's an oblique toner to boot. So you'll lay down in Shavasana, or the corpse pose, and have your legs flailed just a little bit wider than hip position. I'm going to make sure that as you do this check-in, your pelvis is always on the floor. It doesn't get to lift in any possible way. You'll start by taking your right arm and hand and tracking it as far across the left thigh as possible, and try to reach all the way down to touch your knee, which is going to be impossible. Keep this pelvic bone down and allow your external abdominal obliques to kind of freak out and see how far down you can go. And then you'll go to the other side, left arm to right leg and reaching across, and try to determine whether you had more reach through the right side or through the left. And I definitely have more reach from my right to my left than I do from my left to my right. And so on this side, you'll also feel the internal abdominal obliques, and on this side, you'll feel the external. Isn't that wonderful? All right. Whew. So that's your check-in. Just remember which side you had more motion to. Then you'll grab the yoga tune-up therapy balls, and we're going to travel all the way down the spine. Where you'll begin is right in that upper shoulder region. Often I call this the bra strap region or the backpack strap region. And you'll place the yoga tune-up balls on the upper traps. Lift your pelvis up and give yourself a moment to just crisscross across some of the tightest and stiffest and recalcitrant musculature known to the human body. So the upper trapezius kindly tracks all the way up the back of the neck to the base of your skull. And so we're rolling the upper trapezius in order to address our neck, since the rest of our sequence doesn't seem to really touch into the neck specifically with the therapy balls. This one is an indirect way to talk to the neck. So I'm just crossing slowly back and forth and talking to those muscles. You can also do this leaning against the wall. Then you'll pin the yoga tune-up balls together so that they are literally on either side of the spine. Take your hair out of the way, lift your pelvis up slightly, and then in slow motion, you'll roll the balls down your back and let your torso lean from right to left so that the therapy balls are snuggling into the soft tissues along the side of your spine. Breathe and impress your breath into the therapy balls as you go down. And I can feel that my balls are actually a little bit akimbo, one's higher than the other, but that's totally fine. It's doing its job nonetheless. And then you'll slither your way right back up. Breathing into the pressure as you go. I'm pivoting to the side now. I'll give you another side view. So sometimes you might find it difficult to get the rock. You can actually use your feet, and you can walk your feet towards your body to help roll the therapy balls down your back. And then to get yourself back up, you can pull yourself along. At some point, someplace along the spine, take a complete load off. Let your body rest and allow your body to mold itself into the therapy ball. So this is like a bonus moment. Get back in touch with your full body breath, that abdominal thoracic breath, and then we'll roll off. So just about 2 to 3 minutes of rolling. Then, the next part of the sequence is about mobilizing the spine in every possible way. So I'm going to start by doing this on the ground in a low bent knee. If this isn't practical for your knees, you can try this from a high knee position. Or if being on the knees is like, forget about it, you can also do exactly the same thing by sitting in a stool. So exactly what I'm doing, but sitting on a stool or on a chair. So first direction of movement is the sagittal plane, and that's a front and back movement. So we're going into child's pose. So you allow your body to fold, to curl as round as it can be. Now if your head doesn't reach the floor, you can put a block here, or you can even do the 1 potato, 2 potato thing, and take 2 full breaths. Now the opposite end of the spectrum in that sagittal plane is spinal extension. So for spinal extension, your hands can go to the floor or they can go to the hips. You can hold onto the chair, and then you want to arch your back. You want to express as much stretch in the front of your torso as you can. Now your head and neck, rather, also is a part of spinal extension, but I don't advise you to throw your head back. So just stretch it back as far as you can without feeling pressure or strain in the back or front of your neck, and take 2 breaths. And then coming into the frontal plane, it's a side bend. So place one hand down and arch your way over. 2 breaths here. This is called lateral extension, lateral flexion. And then to the other side. Bringing your arm right alongside your ear, so that adds more weight. It will traction the shoulder further away from the ribs and permit some more length to come in all the way down to the hips. Then the third direction, or the third plane that we explore, is the transverse plane. And for that, you'll rotate. So you're either sitting on the stool or a chair, or you can hear my voice trembling now, because the rotation puts so much additional stress into those oblique and erector muscles. 2 breaths here, and then you rotate in the other direction, not using your shoulders or your hands or your arms to do this, but using the torso muscles that are now having a new load to carry while you're breathing in that rotation plane. Round 2. Round 2 is a half kneeling position with split legs, or if you're on the chair or on the stool, you can do a similar thing, right? Creating that little split squat yourself and having the pelvis supported on the stool. So we're going to go through all of the movements again, but in this position. And this position is a real tease because of the difference of the position of your femurs. So, spinal flexion. 2 breaths. Spinal extension. Holding onto the pelvis, not allowing the pelvis to change, but trying to use exclusively the muscles surrounding the spine to get your back bend, or to get that extension. 2 breaths here. Coming to center, and then your side bend. So depending on how much lateral flexion and extension you have, your hand might actually touch the ground, or it might not, doesn't matter. If you want to have a block here or some other thing to support you, you're more than welcome to do so. And then other side, keeping the pelvis stable and level. 2 breaths. Woo! That woo is about feeling that lateral mobility, and then the rotation. So the rotation, there's a temptation to move the pelvis. Please don't. You keep your legs stable. 2 breaths. And then 2 breaths rotating in the other direction. So this is also a hip challenge in case you didn't notice. It's spine time, but your hips are also playing along with this. Same thing, forward bend. Or not a forward bend rather, but a spinal flexion moment. So allowing as much motion to come into the spine as possible. 2 breaths. And then extending. And if you have more time, you are more than welcome to do 3 breaths, 4 breaths, 5 breaths. 2 breaths here. Noticing if there is, more movement in one side versus the other. Lateral flexion, coming into that frontal plane for the spine. 2 breaths, and lateral flexion in the other direction. Trying to keep the pelvis from listing or thrusting out and having a more challenging time on that side. And then a rotation. Rotating and making sure that the pelvis doesn't move. 2 breaths into the gut and the rib cage, and then in the opposite direction. 2 breaths here. And then release and lay back. Let's recheck. So coming onto your back, remember the pelvis stays absolutely steady. Right hand reaches across. And you want to see how far down, so that's definitely further than it was before. And you might actually tap in and feel new fibers of obliques playing along. And then the other side, finding out if I have more motion. And maybe just a little bit more. Woo! Spine time. All right, whole life challengers. Practice that. Make that at least something that you do every other day, taking your spine through its full range of motion, making sure that it has the capacity to do those 4 different ranges. It's going to benefit you in so many different ways. I embody my body, I embody my spine. Thanks for spending the time.